As the next phase unfolded, the dread weighed heavily upon me. The thought of those recordings being aired sent a shiver down my spine. I had already braved through them once, reviewing every damning moment before passing them to my lawyer. Jill's face betrayed her shock, her eyes widening in disbelief at the unexpected turn of events. Over 3.5 years of clandestine rendezvous flashed before my eyes, 243 evenings of betrayal, amplified by the 9 days since my return from the hospital. The resentment I harbored towards Jill and her conniving partner knew no bounds. If only I could exact my vengeance without consequence, I would have severed every tie that bound him to this earth. With a heavy heart, I watched as my lawyer pressed play, unleashing the damning evidence captured within those hotel room walls. There was no hesitation, no pretense. They delved straight into their sordid affair, driven by insatiable desire. Each moment played out like a cruel mockery of my shattered marriage, fueling the fire of my resentment. "May we skip the other recordings?" my lawyer proposed, sparing us the agony of witnessing further betrayal. Once the playback ceased, my lawyer unveiled his trump card, painting a vivid picture of my harrowing journey through coma, recovery, and marital betrayal. The revelation of Jill's clandestine bank account, brimming with the proceeds of her illicit activities, cast a damning shadow over her once innocent facade. With each deposit, she further cemented her descent into depravity, her morality eroded by greed and infidelity. I glanced at Jill, her gaze averted, her tears a feeble attempt to absolve her of guilt. The final blow landed with the verdict: my divorce granted, half of her ill-gotten gains rightfully reclaimed, her despicable deeds exposed for the world to see. In the aftermath, justice prevailed. Jill's descent into prostitution and infidelity left her isolated and bereft, her dreams shattered by the consequences of her actions. Her accomplice met a similar fate, his marriage dissolved, his livelihood jeopardized by his insatiable lust. The company that once sheltered their deceit severed all ties, leaving them to face the consequences of their betrayal alone. As for me, I found solace in the arms of Kath, my steadfast companion through life's trials and tribulations. Our union, forged in the crucible of adversity, blossomed into a love that transcended the pain of the past. And so, as I bid farewell to the shadows of my former life, I stand on the precipice of a brighter future, guided by love and fueled by hope. To all those who stood by me through the darkest days, I extend my heartfelt gratitude. Your unwavering support has been my anchor in the storm. As we embark on this journey together, let us strive to create a community built on mutual respect, shared learning, and boundless joy. Your feedback, dear friends, is the lifeblood of this channel, and I cherish every word, every suggestion you offer. Take care of yourselves, and until we meet again, may happiness and prosperity grace your every step. One moment of weakness led to another, and I found myself succumbing to temptation, betraying the trust of my husband. It was a spontaneous, thoughtless act, driven by fleeting desires and justified by the pressures of our demanding lives. In the heat of the moment, I didn't dwell on the consequences. Instead, I allowed myself to be swept away by the thrill of the forbidden. The following night, Percy and I found ourselves entangled once again, indulging in the reckless abandon of our affair. Yet, as the harsh light of reality pierced through the haze of passion, regret began to gnaw at our conscience. We were both aware of the gravity of our actions, Percy, engaged to be married, and I committed to my husband. In a moment of clarity, we made a pact to bury our indiscretions and pretend as if they never occurred, fearing the repercussions on our professional reputations and personal lives. As we parted ways that fateful night, we vowed to sever all ties, knowing that our paths were unlikely to cross again. Little did I know that the guilt would follow me home, festering like a wound that refused to heal. The moment I reunited with my husband at the airport, the floodgates of emotion burst open, and I found myself crumbling under the weight of my deception. The guilt weighed heavy on my heart, casting a shadow over every moment of happiness with my husband. Despite my efforts to mask my turmoil, the guilt consumed me, robbing me of sleep and appetite, and poisoning every aspect of my life. The decision to start a family only intensified my inner turmoil, as I grappled with feelings of unworthiness and fear of losing the love of my life. In the silence of my suffering, I found myself torn between the urge to confess and the fear of losing everything. The thought of shattering my husband's trust and breaking his heart filled me with dread, yet the burden of my guilt grew heavier with each passing day. I yearned for absolution, for the chance to make amends and rebuild what I had destroyed. As days turned into weeks, the weight of my secret became unbearable, and I found solace in the anonymity of this community, seeking guidance from those who had walked this path before me. Their stories, both uplifting and cautionary, offered me a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness of my despair. Now, as I stand at the crossroads of truth and deception, I must decide whether to bear the burden of my guilt alone or to confront the consequences of my actions. It is a choice fraught with uncertainty, yet I know that whatever path I choose, it will shape the course of my life and the lives of those I hold dear. And my heart skipped a beat as I nervously approached it, unsure of what awaited me on the other side. I opened the door to find my husband standing there, his expression unreadable, and for a moment, the silence between us felt deafening. I invited him in, hoping to break the tension that hung heavily in the air, and he entered without a word, his eyes never leaving mine. I led him to the living room where we sat down, the weight of the confession heavy on my shoulders. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come, and began to recount the events of that fateful night, every word feeling like a dagger piercing my heart. As I spoke, I could see the pain and disbelief flicker across his face, his features contorting with raw emotion. When I finally finished, there was a long, agonizing pause, during which I held my breath, waiting for his response. Then, to my surprise, he reached out and took my hand in his touch grounding me in that moment of uncertainty. He spoke softly, his voice laced with a mixture of hurt and understanding, as he assured me that we would get through this together. In that instant, I felt a wave of relief wash over me, knowing that despite the betrayal, our love was strong enough to weather the storm. We spent the rest of the day talking, tears mingling with laughter as we navigated the complexities of forgiveness and reconciliation. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when the pain threatened to overwhelm us, but through it all, we clung to each other, our bond forged anew in the fires of adversity. In the days and weeks that followed, we sought solace in each other's arms, slowly rebuilding what had been broken, and in the end, emerged stronger and more resilient than ever before. So, to all of you who have stood by me throughout this journey, I offer my heartfelt thanks. Your unwavering support and encouragement have been a beacon of light in my darkest hours, and for that, I am eternally grateful. As I glanced out, my gaze fell upon my parents standing there, a sight unexpected and puzzling. With a sense of urgency, I hurriedly opened the door, ready to suggest they return later, mindful of the private conversation Deegan and I were having. However, my mother interjected, mentioning that Deegan had already contacted them and divulged everything. I was dumbfounded, rendered speechless by this revelation. My father, sensing the gravity of the situation, inquired if the confession was true. Flustered, I found myself grappling with the weight of his words, unsure of how to respond. When prompted further about the nature of the confession, I reluctantly admitted to the affair, feeling a rush of guilt and remorse wash over me, tears welling in my eyes. Before I could even begin to explain my actions, Deegan emerged from the office, engaging in conversation with my parents, his demeanor distant and detached. Ignoring my presence, he referred to me in the third person, requesting that my father escort me away as he was not in a stable state of mind. Desperate for his attention, I attempted to communicate with him, only to be met with indifference as he continued to focus solely on my parents. Feeling invisible and unheard, I approached him, enveloping him in a hug, seeking solace and connection. Yet, his response was devoid of warmth or reciprocation, leaving me feeling even more isolated and alone. As he retreated back into the office, locking the door behind him, my parents bombarded me with questions about the affair, exacerbating my distress. Overwhelmed by emotions, I sought refuge in the bedroom, where my mother followed, providing comfort and support as we engaged in a heartfelt conversation. After a while, she assisted me in packing a few belongings before bidding me farewell. With a heavy heart, I spoke to Deegan through the door, professing my love and expressing my willingness to give him space until he was ready to talk. Informing him of my intention to stay at my parents' house, I embarked on my journey, uncertain of what the future held. Throughout the remainder of the day, I anxiously awaited any communication from Deegan, my mind consumed by thoughts of how our relationship had unraveled. Despite my attempts to reach out, I received no response, leaving me feeling increasingly distraught and helpless. As Sunday morning dawned, I found my parents seated at the table, their expressions mirroring my own inner turmoil. Assuming they were upset about my actions, I was taken aback when my father revealed that Deegan had visited earlier that morning. Upon learning that Deegan had left my car packed with my belongings in the driveway, I was overcome with disbelief and anguish. Rushing outside, I was met with the sight of my sport utility vehicle filled to the brim with trash bags, a tangible manifestation of the turmoil within our relationship. Feeling overwhelmed by a sense of loss and confusion, I confided in my parents, expressing my need to confront Deegan. Arriving at the house, I was met with locked doors and changed codes, further emphasizing the chasm that had formed between us. Faced with the reality of being locked out of my own home, I grappled with a profound sense of isolation and despair. In the quiet solitude of that early Sunday morning, I found myself grappling with the weight of my decisions and the uncertain path that lay ahead. In my attempt to resolve the escalating conflict, I maintained a demeanor of civility, yet when met with silence, I resorted to texting, asserting my right to access our shared home. His response, a curt "sume," left me reeling with disbelief. The man I once cherished, who epitomized kindness and care, now seemed a stranger, callous and indifferent. I grappled with the dissonance between his past benevolence and his present hostility, grappling with the harsh reality that our relationship had irrevocably soured. Retreating to the solace of my parents' home, I sought refuge in the familiar confines of my childhood room, where tears flowed freely as I attempted to process the tumultuous events of the preceding day. Throughout the ensuing hours, I persisted in reaching out to Deegan, yearning for reconciliation, yet met only with silence, a stark testament to the chasm that had emerged between us. Seeking respite from the relentless turmoil, I requested time off from work to confront the crisis head-on. Returning to our shared abode on Monday, I was met with an eerie emptiness, his absence palpable as I traversed the desolate rooms. A disheartening discovery awaited me in our bedroom, where the absence of his belongings signaled a finality that pierced through the veneer of hope. However, it was upon entering our once shared office that the full extent of his disdain became painfully apparent. My eyes fell upon the shattered remnants of our wedding album, torn asunder in a deliberate act of desecration. The realization that he had meticulously expunged every trace of our shared history, shredding photographs and discarding frames, left me reeling with a profound sense of loss and bewilderment. Determined to unravel the mystery of his actions, I embarked on a quest for answers, reaching out to his workplace and family in a desperate bid for clarity. Yet, my inquiries were met with evasion and obfuscation, exacerbating my anguish and deepening the sense of isolation that enveloped me. As the week wore on, I found myself ensnared in a web of deceit and betrayal, as Percy's attempts to manipulate the narrative only served to compound my distress. Faced with his relentless barrage of pleas and accusations, I steadfastly refused to yield to his demands, opting instead for honesty and integrity, even in the face of adversity. The culmination of this harrowing ordeal came with a summons to the office of the Human Resources Director, a stark reminder of the far-reaching consequences of my actions. As I braced myself for the inevitable repercussions, I resolved to confront the fallout with courage and resilience, clinging to the fragile hope that amidst the wreckage of broken promises and shattered trust, a path to redemption might yet emerge. Upon arriving at the office, my friend's presence initially allayed any suspicions, but as I observed the human resources manager and the director of security, a sense of foreboding crept over me. Seated before them, their solemn expressions foretold the gravity of the impending conversation.
They delicately broached the subject, revealing that an allegation of misconduct had been levied against Percy and me, implicating us in an affair during company time. As their inquiry unfolded, my heart plummeted, and tears welled in my eyes as I grappled with the realization of the predicament in which I found myself. With a heavy heart, I confessed to the transgression, though I stressed that our rendezvous had occurred outside official work hours. However, their explanation clarified that, per company policy, business trips encompass the entirety of one's stay, rendering our actions subject to scrutiny. Their line of questioning delved deeper, probing into the details of our encounter. Reluctantly, I admitted to sharing a dinner with Percy and partaking in wine, a revelation met with disapproval due to the unauthorized use of his card. The human resources director elucidated that such actions contravened established protocols, warranting disciplinary action. For my infractions, I received a final written warning, a reprimand that cast a pall over my professional prospects. Yet, the consequences for Percy were more severe, culminating in his termination. It emerged that he had extended his stay without valid cause, incurring significant expenses to prolong our liaison, an act of devotion that ultimately proved his undoing. Reflecting on the repercussions of my actions, I harbored profound remorse for the devastation wrought upon Percy. Once a promising employee, his career lay in ruins, compounded by the dissolution of his engagement, a fate precipitated by my recklessness. As I grappled with the weight of my culpability, any hopes of advancement were eclipsed by the specter of my indiscretion. The following Monday heralded yet another blow, as Deegan served divorce papers at my workplace. Amidst the mundane bustle of the office, the delivery of flowers offered a fleeting glimmer of hope, only to be dashed by the stark reality of legal dissolution. The juxtaposition of love and loss encapsulated the tumultuous journey wrought by my actions, a poignant reminder of the enduring consequences of infidelity. Mrs. Jenny, you have officially been served with divorce papers. The weight of those words crushed me, and tears welled in my eyes as my world seemed to crumble in an instant. Unable to contain my emotions, I hastily left the office, seeking solace away from prying eyes. The decision to take the rest of the week off felt like a necessary reprieve, a chance to grapple with the tumult of emotions swirling within me. Over the ensuing 7 months, I spared no effort in attempting to salvage the fragments of my marriage. Yet, despite my earnest endeavors, Deegan remained resolute in his silence, refusing to engage with me in any capacity. The void left by his absence echoed loudly, a constant reminder of the irreparable chasm that had grown between us. Despite the finalization of our divorce, the emotional wounds festered, refusing to heal, leaving me adrift in a sea of longing and regret. As I reflect on the wreckage of our once proud union, I can't help but mourn the loss of the man Deegan once was, the embodiment of kindness and compassion that initially drew me to him. Yet, I recognize that person exists only as a distant memory, a relic of the past irretrievably lost to the ravages of time and betrayal. Though I am prepared to face the consequences of my actions, the depth of Deegan's silence surpasses anything I could have imagined, leaving me grappling with the enormity of his withdrawal. To Deegan, wherever you may be, if these words ever find their way to you, know that my remorse knows no bounds. Though the specter of our love may now lie shattered and broken, my affection for you remains steadfast and unwavering. In you, I found a love that transcended the bounds of time and space, a love that endures even in the face of our bitter parting. Know that I will carry the weight of my mistakes for eternity, haunted by the memory of what we once shared. All right, let's pivot to another tale filled with intrigue and excitement. Strap in, folks, as we embark on a journey through the intricacies of another captivating story. After enduring relentless suspicion and mounting anxiety, I reached a pivotal moment of decision. It was an evening like any other when my wife arrived home unusually late, prompting a jest about her mysterious admirer. Yet, behind the facade of humor, a seed of doubt had firmly taken root within me. The fear that had flickered in her eyes at the mere mention of the unknown suitor only fueled my mounting paranoia. With each passing day, my unease grew, fueled by the irregularities that seemed to permeate her behavior. Her phone, once a beacon of transparency, now harbored a clandestine world of deleted messages and clandestine rendezvous. The final straw came during one of her business trips, an event that had become synonymous with suspicion and trepidation. In a desperate bid for clarity, I succumbed to the temptation of espionage, installing spyware on her phone in a misguided attempt to unveil the truth. The software offered unfettered access to her digital domain, granting me a voyeuristic glimpse into her private affairs. It was a decision born of desperation, a last-ditch effort to uncover the truth that lay concealed beneath layers of deceit. As the hours passed, each minute laden with anticipation and dread, I monitored her every move with feverish intensity. The recordings that trickled and offered a damning indictment of my worst fears realized. The sound of her laughter, once a source of comfort, now served as a haunting reminder of the betrayal that lay concealed within its echoes. In the cold light of day, as I confronted the harsh reality of my shattered marriage, I made the painful decision to shield my daughter from the fallout of our fractured relationship. With a heavy heart, I notified her school of her absence, determined to spare her the anguish that threatened to consume our family. As I navigated the murky depths of betrayal and heartbreak, I found solace in the silence of my solitude, grappling with the weight of my newfound reality. The days stretched into an endless expanse of agony, each moment fraught with the unbearable weight of uncertainty. Yet, amidst the wreckage of my shattered dreams, a glimmer of clarity emerged. For in the deafening silence of my solitude, I discovered an inner strength that defied the confines of despair. And though the road ahead may be fraught with uncertainty, I take solace in the knowledge that within the depths of my despair lies the seed of resilience, waiting to bloom anew. The revelation hit me like a freight train, shattering the illusion of trust that had been meticulously constructed over more than a decade. 13 years of shared memories and cherished moments now lay tainted by the sting of betrayal, leaving me reeling in its wake. It was as if a sharp blade had cleaved through the very fabric of my being, leaving behind a raw wound that throbbed with both emotional and physical agony. Stunned and overwhelmed, I stumbled through the haze of disbelief, my mind a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. Nausea churned in the pit of my stomach, a bitter cocktail of dread and despair threatening to overwhelm me. Was it the hangover from the night before, or the crushing weight of the truth finally coming to light that left me gasping for breath? Seeking solace in the frigid embrace of the shower, I stood beneath the icy spray, hoping against hope that the torrential cascade would wash away the suffocating sense of betrayal that threatened to engulf me. 20 minutes stretched into an eternity as I clung to the fleeting illusion of relief, the relentless drumbeat of the water echoing the turmoil within. With a heavy heart, I ushered our daughter into the comforting embrace of her grandparents, promising to unravel the tangled web of deceit that had ensnared our family. Alone in the suffocating silence of our empty home, I braced myself for the agonizing ordeal that lay ahead. The hours stretched into an endless expanse of torment, each moment punctuated by the deafening silence of my solitude. Waves of anger and apathy crashed over me, dragging me deeper into the abyss of despair with each passing moment. Tears flowed freely, a silent testament to the shattered dreams and broken promises that littered the wreckage of my shattered marriage. As the evening descended into darkness, I found myself drawn once more to the digital trail of betrayal that lay before me. With trembling hands, I navigated the labyrinth of spyware, each command a painful reminder of the truth that lurked in the shadows. And then, in a cruel twist of fate, the final nail in the coffin of my shattered dreams revealed itself. A series of candid photos captured the stark reality of her infidelity, laying bare the depths of her deception in excruciating detail. With each damning image, the facade of trust crumbled, leaving behind a gaping chasm of betrayal that threatened to swallow me whole. With a heavy heart and a mind consumed by grief, I made the painful decision to confront the truth head-on. As she returned home, her lips poised for a tender kiss, I recoiled in silent agony, the weight of her deceit pressing down upon me like a leaden weight. Retreating to the solitude of the office, I grappled with the shattered remnants of our shattered marriage, each breath a painful reminder of the love that had been lost to the unforgiving tide of infidelity. In that moment of quiet desperation, I knew that the road ahead would be fraught with uncertainty, but I resolved to face it with courage and conviction, for the sake of our daughter and the fragile remnants of the life we once shared. The morning arrived with a weight heavier than the night before, and I found myself awake before her, consumed by a tumult of emotions that threatened to drown me. Unable to bear the suffocating proximity of her presence any longer, I hastily made my escape, fleeing to the sanctuary of work where I could lose myself in the mechanical rhythm of the day. Summoning what remained of my shattered resolve, I approached my boss with a sense of urgency, desperately pleading for a respite from the suffocating weight of my reality. With trembling hands, I saved every damning piece of evidence onto a flash drive, a silent testament to the shattered fragments of trust that lay scattered in the wake of her betrayal. Summoning what remained of my resolve, I reached out to her with a lie, a facade of normalcy that masked the turmoil raging within. With practiced ease, she played her part, her false sincerity a twisted mockery of the love we once shared. Anger simmered beneath the surface as I watched her, a silent witness to the charade that had become our marriage. Leaving the damning evidence on the nightstand, I made my escape, seeking solace in the arms of a friend and the promise of a new beginning. Together, we embarked on a journey of liberation, leaving behind the shadows of our past as we ventured into the unknown depths of Munich. It was amidst the vibrant tapestry of the city that I found the courage to shed the remnants of my former life, casting aside the shackles of a love long since extinguished. Ignoring her desperate pleas and frantic messages, I embraced the freedom of my newfound liberation, a silent testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity. Returning home, I was greeted by the deafening silence of an empty apartment, the hollow echo of her absence a stark reminder of the chasm that now lay between us. And then, in a moment fraught with tension and unspoken truths, she emerged from the shadows, a specter of the woman I once knew, her tear-stained face a haunting reminder of the shattered dreams that lay in ruins at our feet. With a heavy heart and a soul weighed down by the burden of our shared history, I made the painful decision to relinquish the remnants of our shattered past, forging a new path forward as co-parents united in our love for our daughter. Though the scars of our betrayal may never fully heal, I find solace in the knowledge that we have both been granted a second chance at happiness, however fleeting it may be. She hasn't confided in her parents, only her father knows about my situation, creating a stark contrast to the facade of normalcy we present during our annual family vacation, where now we find solace in separate beds. I find myself frequently surrounded by friends and new acquaintances, some of whom are remarkably attractive women, pondering when she'll reach her breaking point and choose to leave or file for divorce, yet she remains steadfast. Despite my provocations and taunts, I derive a perverse satisfaction from witnessing her pain, reveling in the subtle gestures of her discomfort. An incident involving a pack of rubbers strategically placed on my office desk only served to intensify her anguish, leaving her hurriedly fleeing in tears upon encountering the stark reminder of our fractured intimacy. While she still maintains her professional obligations, I've noticed a subtle shift in her behavior, an acknowledgement of the emotional chasm that now divides us. She attempted to reassure me of her commitment by severing ties with another man, yet I remain indifferent to the intricacies of her personal affairs, adopting an attitude of detached apathy. As our lives continue in a semblance of normalcy, I find solace in the routines of domesticity, remaining steadfast in my responsibilities as a provider and father to our daughter. Yet, beneath the veneer of familial harmony lies a simmering undercurrent of resentment and bitterness, a testament to the fractured foundation upon which our marriage now rests. While I maintain a cordial facade in the presence of our mutual friends and family, internally, I'm consumed by a sense of vindictive satisfaction, relishing in her torment while simultaneously lamenting the demise of our once vibrant relationship. Amidst the turmoil of our fractured marriage, I find myself grappling with conflicting emotions, torn between the desire for reconciliation and the vindictive satisfaction derived from her suffering. For now, I remain entrenched in a state of emotional stasis, awaiting the moment when I'll have the courage to confront the reality of our shattered marriage.